gentlemen, welcome to episode 24 of Kingdom of Kodiak. I'm Kodiak. With me today is Sir Glenalth. How you doing?
Why, hello there. I put all my garb on and everything, so I'd be all ready for this.
And we thank you for that so much. Without any hesitation, if we could just get straight to the bare necessities. Sorry, Sin. Um, how long have you been playing Amtgard?
Since 1996. Started like March 14th or 15th. I can't remember the exact day right now. I'd have to look it up. So
Okay.
a while.
And how long had you been aware of Amtgard?
Well, see, my actual introduction to Amtgard was a sketchy guy that was local, invited a bunch of us kids out to the park to
Oh,
play a game, but didn't actually explain anything about what was happening. And for some bizarre reason, we trusted him enough to actually show up at the park. And he had recruited like 4 people the previous week to like get like the basics down so that there'd be some people to, fight with before he started dragging out new players.
okay.
So I had no idea, didn't even really know that LARP was a thing. So
Well, that's cool to be doing it since '96, but have no previous experience or anything with it. That's awesome.
yeah,
I can't get over it. Never mind.
can't get over what.
Uh, nothing. Nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Where does Glenalth come from?
The name or just myself or like, what do you mean exactly?
So the name, and then we'll talk about the persona.
Well, the name I stole from a D&D character that I had several years previous to joining. And it was one of those things like when I joined, I knew I wanted to use the name, but I couldn't remember exactly what the name was. So like for the first couple months, I didn't actually sign in with a persona name at all. Like I even went to my first Amtgard event where they actually put names on favors and stuff, and I didn't have a name, so they just put a question mark on it, which was pretty amusing to me. But then I actually like bothered to like actually dig up the character sheet and stuff and found it. And it's like, all right, here's the name, and that's where the initial Woodwalk came from as well. It's from that old D&D character.
Okay. And what about the persona inside of Amtgard? Can you tell us a little bit about what Glenalth is as a character?
Yeah, so a lot of the kind of backstory for Glenalth was something that I kind of set up as being semi-Irish, starting as far as like taking inspiration from those stories and like the myths and such. And there's even a couple chapters of persona history that I'd planned on writing a lot more of back in like 99 or so. Like you can find those online in a couple places, and they're all embarrassingly badly written and such. So they're fun to check into. The names of characters in them are either people that like I had started with playing Amtgard with, or are just literally translations of concepts from a different language that I just used as names because I was like, nobody's going to recognize these things. So
Okay.
it's pretty heavy-handed and not great. The whole like, oh, I got amnesia thing, like immediately, that has to happen in there. So
Mm-hmm. It's almost a guaranteed part of the hero's journey at this point. They need to have amnesia.
oh yeah, I mean, I was watching a lot of like really awful TV series back in the late 90s, like Hercules and stuff like that was going on, and it's like, well, okay, it's gonna be weird, I guess, or cheesy.
Yeah.
Just fine.
Yeah. So you've been playing the game for a very long time. What would you say is the award that you're most proud of receiving?
The award I'm most proud of receiving?
Yeah.
That's actually a good question, because there's a lot of weird stuff. Like there's like the knighthood is pretty cool and stuff, but there's a lot of like just like kind of unique awards that have happened over the years. Like I get the title of like Sage of Pegasus Valley, and I like that one a lot. But yeah, I don't know what I'd say I'm the most proud of, because it's never been a thing where I've been like, hey, I want to try and get this award.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't feel proud about anything in particular, other than just kind of that it's been something I've just been able to just keep plugging away at, and they just kind of keep stacking up over the years more than anything.
Okay. Cool. It's a good answer. What would you say is your favorite battle game?
Oh, favorite battle game is actually kind of interesting because there's not like a particular like not a particular battle game that I enjoy, but there's definitely different types of battle games. Like I like when we have like a large field where there are multiple engagements going on, where it's like a series of things for like a tug of war style of game where one team has to keep advancing the goal to a certain point, and then maybe the game type shifts a little bit to like get through some narrow part to, you know, to deal with like the other team, but it can go both ways. Like I like that a lot more than just kind of like the normal we have two bases at the edge of a field with no terrain sort of thing. I want there to be terrain, and I want there to be some optional things that aren't necessarily combat related um, for myself and for the other players to basically deal with. Like I'm a big fan of just having like weird traps or things in games that people have to deal with or they can use to their advantage for their team. Um, but yeah, just something that is not necessarily hit the other player, even though the main goal is still going to be hit the other player.
Right. Cool. I would have to agree with all that, especially the terrain. Man, I can't wait to get some more terrain out on those fields. That would be so good.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do with cones and flagging tape.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, what would you say your favorite class is?
My favorite class for the longest time has been warrior. Like that's something I played a lot of. That was actually when I first started playing. I started playing monk, and then immediately was like, oh, I can make armor, and then people have to hit me more, and I get more chances of winning. Like that is definitely what I'm going to do. So I spent a good portion of the like late 90s and 2000s just making armor, assembling armor, getting a kit together just so I'd have as much coverage as possible. And that was, I really enjoy that. Although more lately it's just been assassin for being able to throw things. It's my mobility is a little bit limited now.
Right. What would your loadout be for your warrior class?
So typically what I would have is a bag of weapons. So whatever happened to happen on the field, I'd have stuff to deal with it or backups or whatever. But like I'd usually have a medium shield, 3 or 4 points of armor in most locations, and then some javelins, a flail tucked into the back of a medium shield, a long sword as a down blade with the shield, a short sword in my hand, and then just rotate those around as needed depending on who I'm fighting. Lots of throwing javelins at casters' feet and stuff like that. So it's kind of entertaining.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are the bare necessities at this point. We're going to get to the general questions, but this is an historic day for Kingdom of Kodiak viewers. This actually completes what would be called the first season of Kingdom of Kodiak after this episode. So, Sarai, you wanted a season? This is your arc right now, and it starts with this set of questions. That's right, the toaster questions.
I see.
Are you happy with your current toaster? Asks Stillhet.
I do not have a toaster.
Oh, okay.
That's the issue.
the toaster, the mini toaster that got posted is not yours.
No, see now we're getting to the treachery of images. That's not a toaster. It's a representation of a toaster.
Oh.
It doesn't actually fulfill the actual duties of a toaster. I enjoy it. It's up on my shelf with a bunch of my other weird Amp-Guard collectibles and things that I've kept over the years. So it has a nice place to live, but it doesn't do that one thing that toasters do, which is toast.
Oh man! So we're gonna be left on a cliffhanger for this season. Oh no! So Kron's question about do you require a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch for your tiny toaster? Now we're just digging at the wound at this point.
Right. Well, again, it's a representation of a toaster. And I don't think Cinnamon Toast Crunch will actually fit in the slots on that thing either. However, I will say the springs in that are very strong. And if I wanted to use it as a small impromptu weapon, I probably could, because the plastic slices that it came with, it can launch those like a good 12 to 18 inches in the air. So really, just get it close up to somebody's face, you can shoot them right in the eye with 2 pieces of plastic toast.
Oh, geez. Okay. Crowd also would like to know if there was a toaster, which there's not, which is throwing the whole game out of whack at this point. Uh, would Dom be the one fixing it for you?
I typically fix my own appliances.
Oh,
Strangely enough, yeah.
so is this a line you're not willing to cross though? Dom cannot help you fix the toaster.
I mean, if Dom had some reason that he wanted to help fix the toaster, I'm not going to stop somebody from doing it. But for the most
Uh,
part, I tend to do my own work. I've got my tools and stuff available for doing just that sort of thing.
okay.
Go into my background as being a troubleshooter.
Okay. Crown would also like to know, because Crown, apparently this is a very important topic for him.
Mhm.
What other kitchen appliances do you not have?
So I actually spent some time thinking about this week because I was just looking for something stupid to buy for my kitchen.
Mhm.
And about the only thing that really came up that I was like, oh man, I want to get one of these is like one of those like club soda makers. So that's what I'm eyeing right now.
Well,
Just gonna make myself some seltzer.
okay. All right. So a club soda maker. Uh, you've been informed, Kron. Beatrix would like to know. Can you just explain the toaster story to us a little bit?
Yeah, no, this is actually it's real simple. Is at the time I was just starting to get back into making bread because I hadn't been making bread in a while. I was like, I could really use a toaster. And then somebody posted something about like I can't remember if it was mid-rain or coronation, and there's like, hey, who's coming to this? And I was like, uh, I was promised a free toaster. Will that be available when I get there, or something along those lines? And that is basically the origin of why the toaster thing happened.
Okay.
And so you push that a few times, and then eventually people are like, wait, what is up with the toaster? So yeah, but I'm still toasterless, but it's all right. I've adapted to just frying my bread on a cast iron pan,
Oh.
so it still works. It's just not quick and easy, I guess is really the thing. But
Mm. My son likes his toast made in a pan. He calls it special toast. So he would be a supporting supporting populist member for such decisions. And then finally, to wrap up the toaster questions,
Mhm.
how mad would you be if you attended an event, whether it's a populist level or a Pegasus Valley level or Kingdom level, and literally everyone brought you a toaster?
I don't think I'd be mad at all. It would be an interesting attempt made to try and figure out what to do with that many toasters. It might mean that a following feast might be an Eggo waffle feast where we just plug all those toasters in and just use them all at once and blow the circuit of whatever building we're in. But it happened at some point. Just have to figure out how.
Okay. I mean, challenge accepted at this point. I want to see what happens. So moving on. Still would like to know, of course, your thoughts on bears.
I don't really have a lot of thoughts on bears. Like I've lived in a few places where you see bears on occasion. Had to deal with bears eating goats on quite a few times, where basically just trying to chase bears out of the yard, which is not a fun thing to be doing. But yeah, otherwise, I don't really think about bears that often.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. Um, uh, who or what is your favorite bear?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I haven't really put a lot of thought into this, but let's see. Favorite bear. Probably have to go with Smokey just for the awareness that Smokey, brings up over, forest fires. Does some good work.
Wow. I mean, you went really deep there. Most people are talking about the Mimi stick bear and stuff, but not you.
Yeah, no, it was a serious question, wasn't it? This is a
Yeah.
serious show, right?
This is just the most serious show.
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't want to make light of something like that then.
Oh, absolutely not. This Stillhat person comes up again and wants to know your thoughts on the DS pool / jacuzzi.
I wasn't aware of there being such a thing, but if you had one, you definitely wouldn't want bears getting in there because the fur would clog the jets and stuff.
Okay.
I mean, if you do just like a regular pool and you have a pretty massive filtration system, it's probably gonna be okay. But a jacuzzi, nah, a bear's just going to destroy that. You just
Okay, so bears, yes for large pools. Bears, no for jacuzzis.
for some large pools, it just depends on what sort of system you have in place. Or if it's just like a natural pool, like yeah, then I mean you're not going to want to stop a bear anyway, but you know, just put the jacuzzi cover on and you're probably covered there anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay. So, going over your questions, you do present an awesome situation for me because every 4 weeks I get to talk about knights.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go right into knighthood and start with a question from Kenjin, which is, in your opinion, what is the role of a knight at the local and wider levels?
I mean, the role of a knight is one of those things that it varies a lot just based on the person you're asking and what they believe that should be, because you've got everything from the range of like, hey, it's just an award, we don't expect anything of them after that, to a knight is like basically a lifelong position of service. But for the most part, you at least want them to be a role model, like at the minimum, like, and to not be an asshole. It's a real good starting point. um, but also helping out and stuff like that is a good thing, to be a leader, even if they're not in an office, even if it's just within their chapter. It's a good place probably to be for what to be expected of them, more than the whole lifetime of service and office thing.
Okay. That seems reasonable. Very basic. As far as like, not being an asshole would be a really great step.
Yeah, there's definitely some people that stretch that a little bit.
Sure. So Kenjin would also like to know, what is your idealized image of a knight?
Uh, hmm. That's actually kind of weird because I haven't really thought about that a lot. Like, so ideally, you want that person to always be there and be ready to take on a project, or at least help and direct a project in some way. But
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to King Roof Kodiak, episode 24. This is part 2. We took a break on purpose, apparently. Um, so, Sir Glenalth, I was asking you your ideal or your idealized version of a knight.
so I don't know if it's the ideal version. It's kind of like the weirdly perfect person that's always there to help out and lead things when something needs to be done, but also knows when they need to not be leading things so other people can do stuff, but are still there for advice and things, which is still pretty normal in a lot of cases. But also one with infinite funds for putting on events and just a vast swath of knowledge on how to do basically everything in Amtgard would be like the ideal thing, which I don't think anybody's going to be there. We've got a few people that are weirdly close to that, but be definitely not the thing that we want to push people into, is being like, oh, you got a couple $1 million to spend on Amtgard. Yeah, let's build an event site.
Yeah,
downtown.
I don't think I'd ever want to. I don't ever want to see a scenario where money is tied directly to a wedding. Oof.
Yeah.
But all right, so Kenjin asks quite a few questions about knighthood. So how long did it take for you to achieve knighthood? You are you've been playing since '96.
Mm-hmm.
So how long would that have been since when you put on the belt?
Oh man, I actually would have to look it up. I think it's like 2004, 2006.
That sounds about right.
I don't remember the year, but yeah, it was like 8 to 10 years of what I was doing. But like really, most of that time was me just doing like real low level stuff in a shire, and then in Pegasus Valley when it was kind of like at kind of its lowest point ever. Which part of that was something that like I had no idea what I was doing, and we had very few people left in office at that point that really knew what was going on. Real small numbers. So basically just me going from a shire to something that was in the middle of crashing down to shire levels again. So But after a while, it started building up and stuff, and we started doing some actual events and things like that. And that was a big part of kind of like me doing amp card stuff early on. Is just like, hey, this stuff needs to be more fun. How do we make it more fun? Here's how we make it more fun. And as it became more fun, it just happened to be that I was doing a lot of that stuff to make it more fun. So that worked out for me pretty well.
Okay. So that kind of answers the next question about what kind of work did you do to become a knight? So there was a lot of service involved with just making the game more of a game.
Yeah, or not even more of a game. It's just like everybody kind of has their vision of like what they want amp card to be like. And there's this kind of sweet spot between being like a straight up combat sport and like an actual like straight up LARP. And like I kind of want this thing that's in the middle somewhere. And so like I'm always trying to make sure that it's not too far on one side or the other, because that's like where I want it to be. It's not necessarily where everybody else wants it to be, but it just happens to be that if you happen to be in on the fighting or you happen to be on LARPing, you at least have a little bit more you can do rather than just being shut out. So it's just a weird happenstance that happens to work out pretty well for me and what I want to do, which is basically show people like, hey, this is how you can run things, and hope that they also run things like that so that I get to actually participate in things I like to do.
Right. Right. Still, would like to know: did knighthood change the game for you significantly?
Not really. So it's actually kind of interesting in Dragonspine because like the people I was surrounded with were still the people that I was around in the first place. The weird thing was actually when I moved out of Kingdom for a while, there was a lot more emphasis put on the fact that I was a knight, and people like being more in awe at the fact that there was a knight there. Like even though they had other knights there, it was just like, oh, you're a knight, and it was kind of a bigger deal. And then move back, and then it's back to it's just me hanging with my friends and stuff, and it's not that big of a change. So I think it, for the most part, the only real difference is just like how you're perceived by strangers, which is
Was any of that allure outside of Dragonspine that you were a knight from Dragonspine, or was it that you were just a new knight?
I think it's just that I was a knight, not necessarily that I was from anywhere in particular. But yeah, I'd have to actually go back and like ask people to see if that was the case or not. But I don't
Okay.
think it was specifically that I was from Dragonspine.
Okay. Kenjin would like to know what's the best part of the knight culture in Amtgard?
In Amtgard, I don't know. I like that there's a kind of a concept for like having like the people that we're trying to elevate as kind of role models for like their skills and what they've been doing is kind of cool. But it's not necessarily game wide. That's a thing. It's kind of hard to say game wide because it varies a lot from kingdom to kingdom, or at least a little bit from kingdom to kingdom, to the point where it just doesn't mean the same thing.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Dragonspine then. I mean, that's our
Mm-hmm.
both of our kingdom. What's
Yeah,
the high point of being a knight in Dragonspine?
I don't know if there is a real high point to being a knight other than it's just that you've gotten some recognition for what you're doing. But at least that's where I'm at on that. Like that might be different for other people, but like I like that I got this neat ceremony and stuff, and that I get that paladin anti-paladin thing I could do if I ever wanted to play anti-paladin, which I don't because it's for jerks. Um, but yeah, there's not. I don't. I've lost the question entirely at this point because my brain has just wandered off. Sorry.
So the question was what is the best part of the knight culture? And we started in
Oh,
Amtgard,
okay.
but now we're talking about Dragonspine now.
There's actually a pretty good culture within the Night Circle as far as like having pretty open discussion about what's going on. Where as I've been to a couple other meetings in other places, and it's not the same. Like there's a for the most part, like anything that we do is pretty much in writing, so that like people basically have to stand behind like their decisions and things like that. And our new knights, when they get brought on, they can see everything that was said, even about them in the circle and things like that, which is uh, pretty cool. Whereas I've seen that be exactly the opposite in other places because they absolutely want to keep the votes, and the discussion secret. So I like that that's different here.
Okay. And again, we'll stick with Dragonspine just because you don't want to speak for the entirety of the game. It changes a lot. But what would be something you'd like to see change in the night culture in Dragonspine?
I'm actually pretty happy with where the night culture is. There's definitely, we get a few issues with maybe the awards culture a little more than the actual knighthood culture. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way that the actual knights and knighthood are in Dragonspine at this point.
Okay.
I don't know if I would change anything other than to maybe have like a couple more meetings, but it's hard to get everybody together anyway. So,
And so it sounds like what you're saying right here, though, is the awards and how they're given out are one completely different entity than the culture of knights in Dragonspine. Those are there is the overlap in the sense of getting there, but nothing connecting it.
Yeah, they're definitely related. And there's definitely like a case of like I'm trying to think of how to put this. So like we have like the awards that are given out or not given out basically at the whim of the monarchy at some point, and then there's the knighthood thing where it's we'll put the knights together to discuss someone, and usually if they've got the awards, like the only question is like, hey, what were these given for? It's usually not like a thing of like, oh, screw those awards or whatever. It's just like, hey, we just want to like a little more detail on like what they were for. But yeah, that's really about it. But actually getting people to that part where they have those masterhoods and stuff right now is maybe a little harder than it should be, but that's something that we kind of all have to do as a group and figure out what's going on there, which is actually the awards committee that's been going on and sending out all these surveys about like how people feel about different awards. That's a big part of what they're doing, and they're trying to get that information game wide. So definitely answer those surveys if you see them come through, just because they want to get the feelings of everybody, even the new players, the older players, because everybody's got their own preconceptions of what those awards mean, even if sometimes they feel the awards are for something completely different than what they actually say they're for. So
yeah, no, I agree. I was interested to hear the difference once you became or once you were able to get to the knighthood, that the knighthood culture in itself you're comfortable with, but getting people to that point is something that we need to talk about, which is super cool. Always willing to have that conversation. So Kenjin would like to know, after achieving knighthood, what are your next goals inside of the game?
I mean, so knighthood was never a goal. My goal was basically have fun and try and get people to have fun in a way that I wanted them having fun, in the hopes that they would make things work that way so that I could have fun when I'm not running things. So right now my goals are still kind of that, as far as like making sure people have fun. I put out guides on how to build various things that are hopefully not going to, injure people or make a game more interesting. So that's kind of what I've been doing lately. I did just spend a decent chunk of money on getting some equipment for making some more ridiculous things, which hopefully that'll be in the next month or two. We'll start seeing some weird stuff. We'll just call it weird stuff, but it should be pretty cool. But it does involve a heat press and some other things getting together. So I'm hoping this comes out well, and I didn't just like blow a ton of money on some boondoggle and be like, well, got to sell all this equipment now. So,
well, I'm sure that if with all the artisans in Dragonspine, if you can't find a way to use it, if you reach out, you might find someone who could guide you.
Yeah, there's plenty of ways to use it. It's just, can I apply it to Amtgard is really the questionable thing right now. Like I've got some ideas, and if those ideas work out, it should be more ridiculous than some of the stuff I've been doing in the past. And that's really the goal right now, is just to get more ridiculous on those things.
I love it. That's good. That's good stuff. More ridiculous. Amtgard standards.
Yes.
Still wants to ask a question. Doesn't have to do necessarily with you as a knight, but it also has to do with you as a knight. What do you expect from a potential knight candidate in order for you to give a yes vote?
So the big part is just like displaying some leadership ability, having those prerequisites as outlined in the rule book, which is that masterhood thing, which may be a little too hard to get in some cases anyway. But beyond that, I just want to kind of know what they've done, like what their things that they've done are, because if it's not going to be a case where it's been too little, but I want to make sure that like the things that they've done, they've shown like some leadership in them, on top of whatever it is that they've been doing. That's kind of where I'm at. And then also don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, I know
That's a good one. I love that one.
That's a tough one for some people. I will say that.
All right. So we have a little mini topic inside of a topic, which is your belt line. Darius brought up that you were a font instead of becoming a squire. Now, you had to inform me before we started today that meant that you had no line before yourself. You are the start of a line. You are a brand new branch of the Amtgard tree. What made that become? Was that a conscious decision? I guess is a good question.
I think the best way to put that is that I am socially awkward and never really approached anyone about becoming a squire and stuff. And after a while, it's just like, well, that's just not going to happen. So I'm just not going to do it. And I just did my own thing.
Okay.
There are a few people that gave me advice and stuff like that, but I never really had that mentor relationship with anyone in Amtgard. So it was kind of just never really had that happen. So never became a squire.
Okay. And what did belt lines look like back then? Or what did knights look like back then?
So knights is actually really hard to say back then because we didn't really have a lot of internet contact with people until like the early 2000s. And previous to that, pretty much everybody that we had locally was a page to someone somewhere. Like Pegasus Valley was literally, I can't remember how many pages we had, but it was just a huge number of pages and just pages. So that was seen as kind of the prestigious thing. And if you weren't a page, you found someone to become a page. But that was pretty much it. Like occasionally we'd have like a man at arms or something. We had a couple nobles of like lord and baron titles, but that was really all my exposure to that, unless I went traveling elsewhere, which in the early days meant going up to the home kingdom, which was Iron Mountains up in Denver. So that was always kind of a weird, I don't want to say culture shock, but just like it was just different because you didn't know anybody there anyway. So like when you'd see the people wearing the knight's belts and stuff, like, oh, that's a knight, but also socially awkward. So not really approaching these people to like talk to them.
It's fair. Hey, we're all allowed to be a little awkward. Not a problem. Yeah. Let's talk about people you've belted. Can you give us a rundown of your beltlings?
Yeah, there's actually not a lot of people that I've given a belt because right now I did make a page at one time, but at some point they left their page belt at a girlfriend's house and got in a fight with that girlfriend and never got the page belt back and just quit Amtgard. So that basically ended. Then Sane approached me to become a squire, and so he became my squire, and he went on to get knighted, and he's got his own beltings under him. And right now, the only person I have belted is MacGyver, who's currently my squire, and is doing a pretty kick-ass job at just all sorts of things. So that's always good. So
is there a lot of because you mentioned Sane and MacGyver, both adult players. Is there a lot of mentorship, or is it more a group of camaraderie where you're just like, hey, let's do this together, or let's talk about our ideas about the same subject?
There's a so there was a little bit of mentoring going on, but it wasn't a lot. Um, at least with Sane, we'd occasionally talk about things, especially like he came to me a couple times, like when he was in office to ask me about like how I felt about certain things, and that was about it. But that was also a lot of Sane was squired was actually while I was kind of away from Amtgard, living on a ranch tending goats, so there wasn't a lot of interaction there, just because I wasn't really part of the world for a while.
Okay.
With MacGyver, there's been a little bit more of that as far as like construction projects and going over like how to do various weapons and armor things, which would be cool to do more. But I just started like I kind of go through phases of like having like a lot of energy for Amtgard and then not a lot of energy for Amtgard. And I was just getting into one where I was getting really gung ho on doing a bunch of Amtgard stuff, building a bunch of game props and all this stuff. And then something happened where we had to stop doing Amtgard, and it has made me very sad. And I just now remembered that I've had alkaline batteries sitting in some game props in my garage since March. I should probably go out and pull those out. Um,
Okay.
uh,
All right.
but yeah.
So going back to your love of toasters
Mm,
and your need for such, Zana would like to know, on a scale of raw to toasted, can you
mhm.
talk about each of your squires?
Well, see, I severed all communication and contact with Sane after he got knighted. We just don't talk anymore. He graduated. It's fine. He used to get squire bread. He no longer gets squire bread. So it's kind of raw, I guess, at that point. Like it could have been toasted, but he had to get knighted. So, whatever. Um, at some point, I got to make some squire bread for MacGyver, but I got to work into some weird recipes because apparently just, wheat and salt and isn't going to work out there. So we'll see how that goes. Um, so toastier there, but
Okay.
not quite toasted yet.
All right. So Sane is raw squire and
Hmm.
MacGyver is slightly toasted.
Well, he's not a squire anymore. It's just he's just
Well, I mean,
he's
he's
doing
still
his
your
own thing now.
squire, whether he's knight or not.
I
I
mean,
mean, that's.
you'd ask him about that, I guess.
I mean, wait, I'm a dad, but that doesn't mean
Mhm.
I'm not also a son. Let's not.
Eh.
So the last question in the knighthood category is
Mhm.
from Kenjin. What's your thoughts on the paladin, anti-paladin as a restricted class?
uh, I believe it should stay restricted as the whole flavor of it is that, at least from the creation of it, was that it was a knight class. Like
Yes.
when it took the inspiration from that old D&D. Like the whole idea was that like, oh man, if you go into some of the old D&D books, it's pretty great as far as like the steps it took to actually become a paladin. Like you have to, I think you start as fighter, then you take cavalier levels, and when you get to a certain point, if your stats are high enough, then you get to become a knight. And it was kind of this
Yeah.
bizarre thing in there, but it's one of those things I really kind of like the idea of there being like this path to something like that. So
Right.
there is definitely
Was it one
a
of those
need.
hangups?
What's that?
Was it one of those hangups of 17 charisma as well?
15 or 16, but yeah, it was pretty high. Yeah,
Yeah.
like yeah.
Okay.
But there's
All right.
the leadership ability that we want out of our knights is right there. It's just a number in that system instead.
There you go. I agree wholeheartedly.
So there's a
So
caveat on that though, is that Amtgard does need a way for the players that are not knights to fill that role of like the armored healer slash holy warrior type thing. So that does need to happen. But I really want like the paladin anti-paladin thing to be its own thing still off to the side, and just have it be something that people can work towards over time.
I like it. I like it a lot. That's You're expressing my own opinions on this subject, and I'm not anywhere near a knight. So thank you. Um, so we're done with knighthood. We're gonna talk a little bit about the game as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Darius would like to know: have you considered getting Team Amtgard back together, given the current state of our environment?
Um, that's actually kind of an interesting idea. It it fell apart years ago just because we had a couple games that people were playing a lot, um, and we just kind of stopped playing them, and everybody kind of went on to their own thing after that. Uh, but we kind of did it a little bit with the Dragonspine server. We were trying to get people on there every night to play games together, and we did that pretty solidly for about 5 months before we kind of lost control of it. It's just people eventually just kind of migrated back to their own servers. There's still some people playing there on occasion, but it's not the every night thing that we had going for the last 5 months.
Okay.
But,
Kenjin is asking in the chat while we're going, what is Team Amtgard?
Team Ampguard was a online gaming thing that I put together, I think around like 99 or 98. So, somewhere in that neighborhood. But we did a lot of just multiplayer gaming, Guild Wars especially, and then also a lot of like distributed computing projects like Folding at Home, or what was the previous one to that? Was oh, I can't remember. It was like an RSC challenge where it was like distributed computers trying to crack a an encryption, um, just for fun, you know. No real good reason for it. It's just like, hey, how long is it going to take to break? I think it was like 64-bit encryption or something like that at the time. Maybe it was 56. Wasn't a lot of bits, but it took it a while because it's still a lot of options.
It looks like they're saying beams.
What's that?
Was that the pre? Beams. Is that the prequel or I don't know. Maybe I'm just
Oh, they might be talking about one of
I
the
don't know.
other Discord servers I hang out on, which is Bro Team Ultra Beam, which is something that Sane named, because he's real good at names.
Oh, he's the best at names.
He's pretty good at them. He is my head of
All right.
B-related puns
Okay.
in the household
So
of this post.
uh, Darius would also like to know what is the major differences you see from Amtgard communities in the Iron Mountains compared to Dragonspine?
So that's actually a question I can't really answer at this point because like most of my experience in there was like in 96, 97, or 96 or 98, before I moved to Pegasus Valley in late 98. So at the time it definitely felt a lot more open, because we had people from Pegasus Valley would actually come to Sachsenline, which was the Shire in Santa Fe, and just stomp us into the ground and make fun of us while they were doing it and like cast fake spells and were just assholes. So we just didn't want to
Oh,
go to Albuquerque to play with
okay.
them because they were jerks. So we just go to Denver instead because that was more fun, and they just didn't do the same stuff. So luckily, we started getting some people going up to Pegasus Valley, and we got a little bit more skill as well in Santa Fe, so that eventually that stopped being as much of an issue. But yeah, it was just one of those things where it broke a lot of people from wanting to travel at all. So that was the time. So that has changed a lot since then, which is good because otherwise I probably wouldn't be playing Antguard.
Okay. Uh, Zana wants to ask about your current Amtgard goals. Now we've kind of discussed that,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't discuss for the kingdom. We talked about you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to see happen in the kingdom?
That's a good question. I would like to see more events and things like that going on. It's a little rough with just having so many kingdoms that are kind of close and having their events as well. Maybe trying to do some combined stuff would be good, where we can try and get like our kingdom together and a neighboring kingdom together. Um, as much as like gathering the clans would benefit from being like multiple kingdoms hosting it, that's probably not something that'll happen in the near future, or who knows, after COVID maybe that will be the case. But we've got a lot of these opportunities where we could have like these big events with a lot more people being involved with putting them together and drawing even more people, but we're just either aren't doing it because it's not the way it's been done, or people just don't get along with others in some cases. So it'd be nice to see things change on that respect, but I don't know if it will.
I mean, uh, there was a push for more convergence days, which was at least
Yeah.
getting us together once a month if we could. But yeah, the events, having more events in Kingdom so that we could, it's just super nice to have 40, 50, 60 people together a lot,
Yeah.
you know? But
Yeah. And the
it
convergence
takes
days are
time.
a good are
We'll
a
get
good way
there,
to
I think.
yeah, the convergence days are a good way to do that. We just have the issue of like, well, if you're just going somewhere for like a day and then there's a lot of driving involved, that day to get there and then maybe the next day to get back, the amount of effort that you put into playing Epcot at a park for a day, or even if it's off site somewhere else for a day, just doesn't feel good compared to showing up somewhere like on a Thursday or a Friday and playing all day
Mhm.
for a day or two and then going home. I know that's a little bit more difficult for some people to do, but it's a lot more likely, at least for me, that's something that I would be more likely to show up for than just driving to say Yuma for the day. Like that, given the worst example I could give myself of like, yes, let's go to Western Arizona and spend, I don't know, like 16 hours driving or whatever it is. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's pushing it a little bit. But like if it's 16 hours
Well,
and
if
I get to spend 3 days partying or whatever and then come back, yeah, that's better.
if you had Dom's mom's burritos and 8 other people packed into a van, 16 hours only feels like 24. It's not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, um, Kenji would like to know what is your favorite area of work? And I believe he's talking about the arts and science field.
Right now it's doing weird things in foam. Um, I don't want to get too much into what I'm trying to do right now, but it does involve making my throwing weapons more ridiculous. So that's right now that's kind of my focus and what I'm enjoying doing. Otherwise, it's been a lot of game props and like things that people have to actively interact with, which is actually had a bunch of stuff planned out for this rain in Pegs Valley, which immediately ended after the first week. So none of that happened, other than a couple things that have some buttons and timers on them that were just real basic, like, hey, let me throw these together for the first week so we have them available. And
Mm-hmm.
we did get to technically use them for one day, which I guess is cool, but they make a beeping noise.
Yeah.
I don't know. It upsets
Anything
me
with
to
a
think about it.
noise, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I
It's
I
it's sad.
I like anything that stops people from having to like do counts and stuff like that and just be like, hey, when you do this thing, it will tell you when it's done, or there's some mechanism that you have to do, so we don't get into the arguments of like, well, they counted faster than somebody else. It's like, well, the computer counts exactly as fast as it intends,
like that.
or it's some physical thing where like, oh yeah, they untied that knot faster. Like, yeah, they did. Cool. Like that's fine with me. Like giving people an actual challenge to do rather than just count is a pretty huge thing of just like what I want to see out of games.
Cool. I like that a lot. Um, so you're pretty well rounded. You are a crafter.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in the crafting realm that you're looking to try to improve upon that maybe you don't feel you're as good at right now?
I definitely want to get more into painting again because I just haven't done it in a long time. So when I am building like 3D objects, they typically need to be painted, um, which is actually kind of a funny thing because I'm trying. So I want to get back into painting because of that, but at the same time, I've bought a bunch of equipment so I don't have to do that anymore. So we'll see how how those things work together. So it's probably gonna be a lot more digital painting to get the looks of what I want, and then printing them out. So it should be interesting. I wish I could just be like hold up something and be like, hey, check this thing out. This is an example of what I want to be doing. But I'm not even that far yet because of shipping delays due to this COVID thing.
That's fair. Yeah. Also, I don't know if it would work. I mean, never mind. We're not going to talk about it. So, uh, what kind of general rules do you have for success of game design? What are the like fundamental three, if you will?
Uh, for rules for game design. So if you can kind of play the game out in your head after you kind of put it together and make sure that the stuff that people are doing makes sense, that's a good thing. Another thing is, like I was saying before, if you can avoid anybody from like artificially limiting themselves or having to count something out, absolutely do that. Um, because people count differently. Like that's just a thing they do. If you're telling somebody that they can only walk when they're holding something, like everybody's walk speed is going to be different anyway, so you're not limiting it in any way that is meaningful across the entire play space, unless you have somebody that's like literally like the designated walking person, in which case even that can end up being a little bit different speed depending on like if they're hot or in the shade or whatever. So I'm a bigger fan of like, if you're trying to slow somebody down, give them something they need to carry that breaks, and if it breaks they're not allowed to carry it, they need to put it back together. Like, just try and give there to be some mechanical reason of why there's a slow. If that person can run full speed across the field carrying that thing that is fragile as heck, okay, cool, they did it. Like, they use their skill and their know-how to try and get that thing across the field quickly. That is a better thing than just be like, hey, yeah, only walk with this. So that's a kind of a core of what I try to do, at least. Like, every once in a while you end up falling back to like, yeah, it'll be 5 seconds or something like that, but trying to avoid that as much as possible. The other thing is, if you have a timed game, make sure there is a win condition that will end the game early in case it is a stomp on one side. So like, if you're playing a 20-minute game and it turns out that one team is just vastly overpowering the other team, just give them a win condition that they can accomplish quickly, and then you can just start the game over with new teams or start a new game or whatever. Just because you don't want one team getting stomped on for 20 minutes, because they're not going to enjoy it. Some of the people on the team that's doing the stomping aren't going to enjoy it because they may not even get the opportunity to hit anybody because of other people. It's and those are kind of some good guidelines for adapting any sort of games, especially like if you're looking at like video games and things like that. Like, those adapt well to Amtgard typically for like PvP modes. But you just kind of keep those three things in mind. The first one is pretty good too, as far as like thinking through the game, because like sometimes you'll just think of like some exploit that's going to break your game before it happens. That's solid to know ahead of time.
Yeah. I know that if I was aware that not answering my riddles during my Harry Potter reign would have made it quicker than answering my riddles, I would have changed the penalty for not answering my riddles. But
Yeah.
Thank you, Redbeard and Sir Sane, for deciding to break my entire end. No big deal. All right. So, Stillhead wants to ask a question that kind of a really quick veer.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite wheel memory?
It's actually some of the early wheel meetings before I was in wheel. So I have this habit of just being present at various company meetings of several companies over the years, because I'm just there and they kind of form where I am, and I just don't leave. So there's been a few, like I've been in a few ward answer meetings over the years, and the wheel meetings were something that was kind of happening at the campsite because like I was getting along with those guys anyway, even though early days some of them were kind of jerks. The Yeah, just hanging out with them and basically getting to know new friends was pretty cool. Like, and seeing how they were trying to run things, which was pretty
Cool.
neat.
Cool. Zana would like to know, of all of the GOTC tokens that you've collected, which one is the best and which one is the worst?
The best one, I don't know. Like, so the tokens for the most part are all pretty solid. Like, they're big metal tokens, and they're still like one of the better tokens I've gotten from any event has just been this collection of metal things I have on a ring over on my shelf, and they're all quite neat. There's a one year where like I guess the press broke or something weird like that, and so we're giving out wooden tokens instead. But that was still like a memento for the event. The worst ones have definitely been when I've gotten to the event and they're just like, oh, we're out. Like, okay,
Oh,
so that sucks. Like, what was the idea of like paying this gate fee and like there's a memento and stuff along with it, and it's like, no, just we're just out. Like, all right, well that sucks. So like I spend
yeah.
a decent portion of time being like trying to find somebody that has one. Like, hey, do you want that? Can I have that? Can I trade you for something? Like, trying to collect them. And there's still a couple years I think that I don't have any at all. So I gotta I gotta do some digging to go through the collection and figure out what year everything's from, because they're not necessarily uh I think at least a couple of them like have an incorrect numbering or something weird like that. I have to go look at them, but
No,
yeah, that's
that would be an interesting quest to complete for your personal reasons. There is get all the tokens.
yeah.
Um, I like that. uh, Dom, I'm gonna disappoint Dom real quick. I saw Sir Glenalth a couple weeks ago. There is no beard.
It's true.
Uh, so why is your beard so glorious? Ooh,
It's still
that's
glorious.
a
It's just not on my face.
oh, so it's oh okay. Well,
Yeah, yeah,
here
it's
I was
fine.
thinking that once it left your
No,
face, it
it's
was no longer your
right.
beard. But
Well,
okay.
I mean, it's somewhere in the trash system at this point, probably, or somewhere. I don't know, but it's still glorious. I just don't have it anymore.
He was also very interested in is there ever an opportunity for the return of Harvest Wars or Harvest Souls? Sorry.
I would love to see that come back. It's definitely one of those things where it's early days when it was a little bit more of a, I don't want to say a collaboration, but it was basically built upon like a rivalry between Iron Mountains and Pegasus Valley. Um, like those early days, there was a lot more. I don't want to say buy-in exactly, but there were people that were going there just because they were trying to defend the honor of their kingdom, which got us a decent number of players, and it was kind of cool. Um, in later years, we tried to turn it into a little bit more of a role-playing event, and that seemed to be working out pretty well. And I'd love to see it come back like as that, since that's something that we have a lot of players that are kind of are wanting more than just go and show up and stab each other for 2 days. You can see the kind of things going on at like the gathering, where there's a lot more small scale games going on during the event rather than just the big field games. And I do miss the big field games, but those small ones where there's a little bit of role play stuff and some mechanics to them for some like quest line are something that we have a lot of people that want to do, and they just don't even have the opportunity to do it most times.
Would be something I would immediately want to steal if we were to make another event is take the RP Tavern idea from GOTC and be like, let's make some quest line stuff and heavy RP and whatnot.
Yeah, I've had some talks with a few people about basically doing an event at some point in the future, and some of it's kind of fallen through. But I do have essentially a rule set for a role playing event where it's not even necessarily that there's like like people the regular like talking in accent sort of thing that you think of people doing, but just like having something where every aspect of the event is somehow connected to a storyline and an end goal, and you have teams competing against each other the entire weekend to do that, even no matter what they're doing. Like if you're doing an arts and sciences class, you're still like earning some favor for your side or for yourself or something like that. The ditch field is literally like, hey, come and practice. You'll as you're practicing, you earn points for your team that they can use for in the battle games. So you can team up with the people like, hey, we'll get these sword knights that don't want to battle game at all on our team to go fight at the ditch field or the warlords camp, whatever we want to call it. And that's actually actively impacting the players that want to do more role playing, because they're getting like magic items or whatever that's going to help them like in the battle games and the questing that's going on otherwise. And trying to find a way to fit everybody in without diluting any part of it too much is rough, but I think it's doable, and I would love to see an event more like that.
Yeah, I think essentially you if you can put a team together of people who are willing to say, I will step back from playing the amp card part of it so that I can be your NPC
Yeah,
and start with that basis. Is if you can get that team together, I think the rest can just fall into line.
yeah, and part of that too is like the non-combat people then have a thing where they can contribute as well, because that's something that has been kind of lacking for, the normal park day. Like if you've got a battle game and you have somebody that can't fight or doesn't want to fight, like their options are usually pretty limited. Maybe they're doing some arts and sciences there at the park or something like that, which is, that's still pretty cool. But like if that was actually something that was also impacting like your group or your team, then that's something that I would love to see and try and encourage more of, especially with like having like a big event where we could do something like that would be great.
Yeah, I agree. We'll collab. We'll figure it out. Um, I think having someone like Dom ask the question about Harvest Souls, you being a major proponent of that being a possibility, and then knowing that there's enough people that want the RP side of it, I think this is completely doable, and we should go for it. We should gun it. I'm just jumping right into it. Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Damon, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's a concept like if you kind of think of like your normal event staff, the number of additional people it takes on top of that normal event staff to make something like this work is really kind of the biggest barrier. Like, there's some funding and stuff like that that's kind of an issue, but like just kind of like how many more people you need to be involved on the operation side of things is kind of difficult to get. So you can design things to eliminate as much of that as possible, but it's still going to be uh, a lot bigger team than than anybody really would want to put together for an event. So trying to balance that stuff out is the hard part too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, but we'll get there. Um, Damon, I believe, would like to know, why are you so awesome?
I was raised okay, I guess. I really don't know how to answer that one.
Well, I mean, that's probably the right answer, anyways. Though.
Yeah.
How much fun is it to edit things like the LSU seminars?
Oh, like the ALU stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's fun necessarily. It was definitely something that needed to be done. But for the most part, I only did like the first few of those, and then Goldcrest managed to handle the rest of them. Part of it was just like the learning of things and like showing him the ropes of how that worked and setting up the framework for like our lower thirds and things like that. And then once he had it down, he basically was taking care of that. So I did a little bit of that. Otherwise, I was mostly just handling backing up media off the cameras and operating cameras. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, it's all right. Not fun, I guess.
Okay.
Which is one of those few things where I did something where it's just like, I'm definitely not having fun doing this, but it's at least also not a bad thing. And if anything else, it was just good to have extra stuff on my resume anyway. So
Sure. Okay. That's cool. I was unaware that you were even part of the tech side of the ALU. ALU is how I got introduced to AmpGuard.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, that's a big deal to me. That's awesome. Thank you for that work. I'm kind of I kind of like to research stuff before I join, and I watched all of the ALU videos, and then went to my first park day. And yeah, it's
a lot of video.
Fun story that. Yeah, well, it's a fun story. Beatrix and Deverick decided not to ask, so whatever. I'm not bitter. So, Kenjin, the last question in the Kingdom Wide before we get to the funny questions. Kenjin would like to know, if V9 removed the restriction of setup awards, what would be something something else to recognize your accomplishments and efforts on the field?
Sorry, that broke up a little bit. You said if V9 removed what?
If it removed the restrictions of how we gave out awards, what would you want as something to recognize your accomplishments and efforts on the field?
So if V9 removed the restrictions on awards,
Right. So currently we have like Paragon, and we have the sword knight and some mask
Mhm.
and facade, etc. If there was no restriction on what you were able to get for stuff like that, what would you want? I guess is maybe I'm not asking the question
I
correctly.
just I guess the issue is like I don't really think of them as restrictions. Like I think of them as like requirements. So I'm not. It might just be a difference of how they're thought about at that point. But like if we didn't have requirements for awards, like where it was just like, hey, we've got 10 levels of this, but there's no requirements on them, like it'd be a little different. There's definitely was it HFS had something where they have a similar award system, except they at least one of the branches broke it down so that like they basically had, I think it was like copper, silver, and gold awards, and it's like a gold award was like actually a tier, and like a silver award was like a third of a tier or something like that, and then the copper awards were like a portion of that. And the idea was that like if you did enough of something, even if you weren't particularly good at it, you'd still get to those top levels eventually. Like, you know, if you got like
Okay.
100 copper awards, it'd be the same as 10 of the golds, or something along those lines. It's been a long time since I was reading that, but it's definitely, it'd be a more interesting way of going about that, because like as far as there just being like a restriction or requirement, I think it's a big part of why we have a lot of people pushing themselves to like be particularly good at something. And if we didn't have that, I don't know exactly what the game would be like. Like it might be better, it might be worse. It might be that people are just doing the same things but selflessly to some degree. Like I just don't know.
That's an interesting idea of having the three color codes instead of the lateral awards.
Yeah.
Um, my concern though is once you get to the end, the top
Yeah.
of that, where you're talking about possible knighthood, you're going, well, this person did get 100
Yeah.
bronze,
They did win
bottle
a
tops.
they did win 100 tournament lists at a Shire level. You know, it's
Right.
it's
Uh,
definitely a very different thing. And so I just don't know what that would do in our culture as far as like our not the achievements themselves, but like the drive to get for people to get to those achievements, like how much that would
right.
change.
That's interesting. Something to ponder over for sure. All right, Sir Glenalth. We've gotten through all of the real hard hitting questions.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this is a serious show, sometimes I do have to ask some funny ones, kind of bring us back down to earth a little bit.
All right.
Darius would like to know, what would you consider as an ideal straw hat?
So it's one of those things where it needs to be stiff enough that the brim actually sticks out, but soft enough that when it gets hit, it doesn't just shatter. Which is one of those things where personally I've gone through a lot of straw hats over the years, and the best ones I ever got for fighting in were actually these hats I used to get at Walmart. They'd come out during the summer. They were $1.25 each. I would buy every single one they had in the store, because I knew that I was going to break them, and usually they last me a few months each. Um, but that's pretty much it. And a wide enough brim so that I can keep the sun off my face, so I don't have to put sunscreen on, or not too much sunscreen. That's really the goal.
So the ideal straw hat is it's all brim. We're talking all brim here, is what we're doing.
Yeah, essentially, like you still need something to hold it on your head, so you need the dome there. Really, the round dome, I like the look of that more than like the square or like cowboy hat style stuff. Just like a round
Mm-hmm.
dome, round brim, like the normal like sun hat is usually what I'm aiming for, at least. I did find a bunch of hats online from a catalog company that are a little small for my head, but I can soak them in water a little bit and stretch them into shape, and then they work fine. So, but that
All
took years
right.
to find those after Walmart stopped carrying hats, though. So for a long time, I was wearing just like a regular cloth bucket hat, and I hated it. Just hated it.
It's not a straw hat, damn it.
Right.
All right. uh, David Clift. I don't know David Clift persona wise, um, but he wants to know if he can have a dollar.
I mean, I don't think there's anything stopping him from getting $1. He could probably have one. He could probably have more than $1 if he really wants.
Well, I
If he
think
want,
he's
if he,
specifically asking you for $1.
oh, well, that's different. Do I have $1 here? Um, uh, um, $1. Yeah. Oh no, yeah. Here's one. I found $1. Yeah, you can have $1. You'll just have to come get it.
Okay. All right.
It'll be
Dollar's
under a
waiting for you,
rock
sir.
in my garden.
Please. Oh, how many rocks do you have in your garden?
I haven't counted. It'll take me a
Okay.
while.
There you go. Okay.
I'll put a note on
What
top of
is
the
your
rock that
current?
says that there's $1 underneath this rock, so it'll be real obvious.
Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah.
maybe you were gonna choose one rock. If you don't find it, you don't get the $1.
Oh no, that's way more effort than anybody should go through for $1.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. What's your current light level?
So I think I just hit 1094 this morning.
Do you want to give anyone insight to what that means?
Nah.
Oh, okay. Insight. 1094. Take it. The end. Move on.
Yeah.
Still like to know, is a Philly cheesesteak a taco?
I actually have to look into exactly what a Philly cheesesteak is. I think it's a sandwich of some sort, like on a sub roll, right?
Yes.
So
Yep.
if you're doing the highly inaccurate square thing, in that I think it is technically a taco, but that does not fly if you're looking at like actual government regulations, like especially for import and
Government
export.
regulations.
Yeah, import and export. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure that would not qualify as a taco, and if you called it a taco, your shipment would probably be seized or taxed at a higher rate. So yeah,
Okay.
don't ship
Can
those
we-
internationally as a taco. That's all I'm saying.
KOK viewers, please be careful about your shipping of Philly cheesesteak sandwiches.
Yes.
Or at least categorize them correctly. They're not tacos, but then what are they?
They probably classify as a sandwich, but I'd have to look it up. I haven't actually looked up what the codes are for internationally shipping a sandwich.
See, this is what we come to you for, though. Is we
Right,
need
like,
those codes.
It was a little bit more information about like sundresses and like leather jackets and things like that. I might be able to remember something without looking it up, but it's been a long time since I really did any international shipping.
All right.
That
Still, I
NAFTA
would also
paperwork
like
was
to know.
rough.
Still, I would also like to know, what is your favorite song?
Oh, that's actually so. That's one of those things that changes over time, like because it'll just be something that's kind of stuck in my head for a while and playing. But like, what has been recently? I'd actually have to like go through my history. But I've been listening to a lot of like Starry Ulsa, and they had a classic rock cover album they did recently, and they've got a pretty amazing cover of Child in Time, I think is the name of the song. So
Okay.
that's kind of what's been on my list lately, at least.
All right. Zana would like to.
I'll link it after this in the thing so people can check it out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Zana would like to know, what's your favorite musical?
Oh. Favorite musical. That's I really I got to think about that one. Actually, so it's not so much a musical as much as just a collection of covers of Beatles songs, which is like across the universe, and that's one I've watched more times than is probably healthy.
Okay.
And like not all of the covers are great or anything like that. I just like that they managed to like put together a story that surrounds the music, since the music already exists, before the show was put together.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Sir Francis would like to know, does Tajima deserve Sonic?
Sonic the Hedgehog or Sonic drive-in food?
It would be the drive-in food.
Okay.
I think it's pretty obvious he doesn't deserve Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, no, I just want to clarify before saying yes or no. So
Okay.
yeah, probably deserves some Sonic, unless he doesn't like Sonic, in which case, then maybe he doesn't. It just depends on their point of mind at that, or point of view on Sonic at that point.
Okay. He also
Unless
would like to know. Oh, go ahead.
I was like, unless they don't like Sonic and they did something bad, in which case then they definitely deserve Sonic.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean,
Um,
I've never used Sonic as a punishment before, but it's an interesting idea at this point.
I mean, I'm up for anything. Let's
Yeah,
try it.
I really
Uh,
stopped going there once they stopped doing Pancake on a Stick. That's all I'm saying.
oh, okay. Um, Sir Francis would also like to know: should still have to eat her own culinary abominations? If you need reference, there was a taco with Oreos and ranch put on top that she
Mhm.
didn't make, but should she have to eat it?
If you're trying to get other people to eat it, then you definitely have to eat it. If you're just making something to look awful, don't eat it. That's a pretty hard and fast rule.
Okay. Um, okay. I don't know this reference. I don't know this question.
Mhm.
What is your optimum Trials of Osiris team?
Optimum is basically not playing Trials of Osiris, but
Okay.
if I need to, probably just do like one of each class because that's fun. You know, a little easier to recover in case there's something that you need to actually adapt to for the meta. But ideally, just 3 really good snipers seems to be the way to go these days. Anyway, unfortunately, I don't know 3 really good snipers.
Okay. What map do you prefer?
Well, since I typically end up being in there with Belthil and he just likes to just run full speed ahead at enemies, anything with narrow hallways and lots of corners so that he does not get shot constantly.
Okay. And Sir Glenalth, the last question. Only if I get your permission to ask it.
Well, that's a disturbing start to a question right there.
I,
So
if
I
I
need to
don't
give you
get
permission to ask a
permission,
question that I don't know what the question is.
yep,
But here's the
absolutely.
thing, I already don't know what the question is that you're about to ask anyway, so you might as well just ask it.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Is it possible to write a funky, fresh rap verse, too funky and fresh for fans of funky and fresh raps? At what point does being too funky and fresh cause one to suffer from illin like a villain? And is there a cure for said illin? How funky fresh do you consider yourself to be?
That sounded like multiple questions. The answer to
Oh
one of the
yeah.
questions is 3. And then I'm not sure about the other one.
How how funky fresh do you consider yourself to be?
Right. I'm not going to clarify which question I was answering with that 3.
Oh, okay. Whoa.
So
All
one is
right.
an I don't know, and the other one is a solid 3.
One, I don't know. The other one, solid 3, Kron. Keep
Yeah.
coming at it, man. I'll put it on every one of these KOKs. It'll be the last question every time. I'm not scared. I'll say
All
it.
right.
Sir Glenall, thank you so much for coming on Kingdom of Kodiak this week. It's been a pleasure. Is there anything you would like to put out to the KOKers?
Uh, hmm, hmm,
Hmm.
hmm, 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 I don't know. I got nothing.
Okay, fantastic. For any of the viewers who haven't done it yet, check out the Discord channel. There's gaming on there every day. I myself am currently downloading Destiny 2 to hopefully
Mhm.
jump into that fray. Um, and if you're looking for other things to do on Saturday, obviously we have our Discord chats and whatnot.
Yep.
As far as Kingdom of Kodiak goes, starting with episode 25, I'm putting a new challenge out to the viewers. We're going to try something a little different. We did a version of this a couple months ago, but we're going to put a twist on it. I want people to challenge non-Dragon Spine players of Amtgard to come on this show. I want to get 4. One night, 3 players to come on Kingdom of Kodiak and tell us about their kingdom, their play style, etc. So, viewers, that's your challenge. But until next time, I've been Kodiak. This is Kingdom of Kodiak. Goodbye.